Hey there, you like Dragon Ball? Well, you're watching this video, so I'm sure you like Dragon Ball. Well, I have a Dragon Ball podcast with a good friend of mine, Dragon Ball University. This podcast is called Dragon Ball Access, and the first episode must have launched today. So, if you want to check it out, click in the description down below, there's a link, and we talk about video games and, Dragon Ball video games, how fun they are, and what we want in them, and our first Dragon Ball video game experience, and all that good stuff. So if you're interested, please do check it out. Anyways, on to the video. Bardock is one of the most popular characters in the Dragon Ball franchise, but there are many mysteries and facts about him that many people don't know about. In this video, I will be delving into Bardock, his popularity, and much, much more. Most of this information can be found on the Kansenju website, the TV special itself, and many other things, if you want further reading or watching. Let's begin by explaining Bardock's inception. Bardock is the main character of the 1990 TV special Dragon Ball Z, A Lonesome Final Battle, the father of Z-Warrior Son Goku, who challenged Frieza. Known in the States simply as Dragon Ball Z, Bardock, the father of Goku. He is voiced by Masako Nozawa and Sony Strait in Japanese and English respectively. Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru was the original character designer for Bardock and his squad mates. But they were all much different from what we know now. We have Akira Toriyama, the original creator of Dragon Ball, to thank for the redesigns, as he had contributions to both names and designs for the characters for the special. Comparing the two, Bardock didn't change too much. The one key feature that did change was Bardock's hair, which was changed to be exactly like Goku's. In the supplementary Daisenshu TV animation Part 3, it was revealed that one of the original plans for the TV special was to have Bardock face off against his son as enemies. Something that has been made into what-ifs in video games multiple times. Something that may be surprising to many fans is that Bardock was completely invented for the anime. He was not canon to the manga for the longest time. Toriyama loved the character and the story so much that he incorporated the final scene into the manga in just 2 panels, where Frieza recalls a Saiyan that looked like Goku, a Saiyan that stood up to him until the very end. As Toriyama said in an interview, "I really like the story of Bardock, Goku's father. It's quite dramatic and the kind of story I absolutely wouldn't draw, if it were me. It was like watching a different kind of Dragon Ball in a good way, so I thought it was nice." I would like to point out that Frieza in the manga says that he was one of the Saiyans that stood up against him. So it sort of implies that there were more Saiyans. Perhaps in the manga story, Bardock did convince a few Saiyans, that being a difference between the special and the manga. This is one of the only instances where an idea for the anime was adapted into the manga. The TV special's Bardock is a low-class warrior, leader of a Saiyan crew that is cursed with the power to see his race's demise thanks to an alien whose planet he got just taken over. Bardock tries to convince the other Saiyans to join him in the revolution, but is unsuccessful. He bears his fallen friend's blood-soaked bandana around his head and heads for a battle against Frieza, but is killed along with every other Saiyan on planet Vegeta. As many of you know, there are many different versions of Bardock out there. One is the sequel to the original TV special in the form of the episode of Bardock manga by Naho Oishi, which was followed by an anime adaptation. Toriyama even designed Lord Child himself, the main antagonist of the story, and an ancestor of Lord Frieza. The story sends Bardock back in time instead of killing him during the confrontation with Frieza. Episode of Bardock also fulfilled many fans' dreams, as Bardock achieves the form of Super Saiyan, also being implied that he was the very first Super Saiyan. This story really makes no sense. Another version of Bardock was that of Dragon Ball Online, the MMORPG that closed in 2013. In the MMO, Mira and Towo are wreaking havoc all through time and space, and it is the job of the Time Patrol to stop them. along with future Trunks, who was tasked with being a time patroller as punishment for meddling with time. Through their adventures, they battle a masked man who seems to be following the orders of the Time Breakers. In one of these battles, on age 762, the masked man is taken off of Mira's mind control and betrays him. As it turns out, it was Bardock, who was saved from death by Mira and Towa, and then turned into a slave. Sometime later, Bardock is shown to have survived the battle against Mira, and helps the Time Patrollers on Namek. If this sounds familiar, it's because Dragon Ball Online was the basis for Dragon Ball Xenoverse and the newer Dragon Ball Heroes stories. It basically became something where they could just pull stories and characters and different ideas and incorporate into original stories for future Dragon Ball content. In Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, the Masked Man storyline was adapted as the Time Breaker Bardock would attack the player character under the Time Breaker's commands. During the final confrontation, Mira battles the Time Patrol hero. Bardock betrays him and takes Mira into a dimension between time and space, where they do battle. Bardock ultimately turns Super Saiyan 3 and defeats the Time Breaker. The final version of Bardock I want to discuss today is the most controversial one, the Dragon Ball minus Bardock. This effectively erased the Bardock special from the manga continuity, and replaced it with this new chapter. It also gave us further information on Goku's family history. Jean was a Saiyan woman who was part of Bardock's squad. She wasn't a great fighter, and was saved by him multiple times. The two fell in love and had 2 kids. Toriyama also explained that most Saiyans didn't really fall in love, and just were with each other to mate and reproduce. Bardock and Jean were the exception. Instead of having future powers, this Bardock now simply found it weird that all the Saiyans were being called back to planet Vegeta. Bardock and Jean sneak out at night, steal a space pod, and send Goku out to Earth, just in case something does happen, and to keep him safe. Sadly, something did happen. We don't know exactly what went on after this, but we can assume that at least a few days passed. Bardock gathered some forces, changed his armor, and went to confront Frieza, and was ultimately killed. If you want more information about this version of Bardock, I have a whole video on Dragon Ball Minus that I will link in the description below. That is the last version of Bardock I wanted to talk about, though there is countless of other versions in what-if stories through video games. Some more information about Bardock that I want to mention before we go. His name is a pun off of Burdock. He has several Super Saiyan forms, Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as having the ability to transform into an Ozaru. Bardock's first and only appearance in the original manga was on chapter 304, named Kickstarting the Super Decisive Battle. I like to think of Bardock as the Boba Fett of Dragon Ball, a cool looking character with an incredible popularity that is really cool beyond his original appearance. But that is all the information I have for you today. Tell me, what do you think of Bardock? What other characters do you want me to do a character history on? Comment down below, share, subscribe, and check out my other videos. I do a lot of what-if stories and stuff like that you could check out. Anyways, until we meet again, see ya!